Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
Thanks to TriBooth, the best vocal booth for home or on-the-road voice recording. And Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Introducing Robert Marshall from Source Elements and Someone Audio Post, Chicago. Darren Robbo Robertson from Voodoo Radio Imaging, Sydney. Tech to the VO Stars, George the Tech Whittam from LA. And me, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent and home studio guy.
Line up, learner!
Here we go.
Welcome to another Pro Audio Suite, thanks to Austrian Audio, making passion heard, and TriBooth. Don't forget the code, PAP200, to get $200 off your purchase. Now, this is an interesting topic, and it's been quite topical, in fact. A lot of sessions I've been doing of late have been via Zoom, where I'm capturing the audio at this end. But the issue I keep having, and it's a potential minefield for the client at the other end, is they can't hear properly and I can't hear them properly. So constantly I'm getting feedback saying, did you miss a word on the second line, or you didn't have the T on the whatever it was, because they can't actually hear it properly, which is really irritating. And also potentially I could be clipping like nuts on the DAW I'm using and they wouldn't know.
No.
Correct,
So-
because they're not hearing the recording, they're hearing just the microphone input.
Correct.
Indeed.
Correct. But you sort of had a workaround, didn't you, Robbo?
Well, it's not a workaround. It's another piece of genius. Can I just say? I had an issue or a couple of issues in a few sessions with Saatchis and Saatchis who I do some work for here from my home studio and also at their place, because they're very big on not having clients in the building. They're very big on letting clients stay in their place while we do voice sessions. So on the occasion where the creative wants to be in the same room, I'll go in there, and on other occasions, they're happy for me to do it from here. But either way, on Zoom, we were having issues where clients would want video playback. And of course, while they could see and hear it, it was always, it's not in sync. What's going on? It's like, so then you'd have to stop and try and explain, well, it's not going to be in sync. I can't give it to you in sync, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, long story short, I took the plunge and downloaded the demo version of Source Live from the Source Elements website. And I installed it. I had to play with it and fell in love with it. And I rang James, who's the head of production at Prodigious, which is Saatchi's production company. And I said, you need to check this out. Have you got 10 minutes this afternoon? And he went, yes, I do. So we jumped on Source Live and got two creatives who had nothing to do to jump online and basically did a fake session. And they fell in love with it. And now every time they book me, I get asked, can we please use Source Connect? Which of course is
the checks in the mail, Robbo.
Which of course is what they call Source Live. It's just Source Connect to them. So anyway, right. But it is awesome. It does everything it says it would. I'm not saying this just because Robert's on the podcast. I would have downloaded and used this anyway, because it's changed not only my life, it's changed their life as well. They're not getting half the grief from clients. Things are getting approved much faster. Sessions are taking less time. It's a win-win all around.
Yeah. Well, I don't use it because it's not needed in the context of what I do. But is it very, like in terms of getting it to work with video playback and everything, is it much easier to set up from the production side?
Yeah, absolutely. Even I find Zoom very convoluted because you've got to create the meeting and all that sort of stuff. Whereas this is just share the link and everyone's there.
Yeah, but it's still secure because you have basically your room is your room and your room is always there. And use it or don't use it, present or not. But if you want to control access to it, there's a pass key in the same way that Source Connect now is a pass key. So this client, this pass key, that client, that pass key. Want to work back with the other client, set the pass key back, so you don't have to it's not like, ooh, this pass key's been used again, use a different one.
So is the room the studio's room, or is the room the client's room?
The room is the account holder's room.
Yeah, so the room is my room, and I can invite whoever I want. And so I just changed the password for sessions. Yeah, pass key.
Right, gotcha.
So no one else can log in
so
by
to be
accident.
clear to everyone, there's a password for your account, and then there's a pass key for guests to join into your room.
The biggest win from my side of things as a studio is that everyone can see things in sync. And that just saves, because then they can go, look, that line there, I'd really like it to end a couple of frames before the change of shot and all that sort of stuff. They can see that, they can make those decisions there and then, rather than coming back and getting it into the edit and then coming back to me going, can we squish that? Can we take it,
I've been a fly on the wall for a few major studios ADR sessions early in the pandemic when they were trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do. And more than once, just listening to this go down, and all the creatives are trying to watch on Zoom. And, we were facilitating the connection through Source Connect at the time. And this was when we had Source Live, the original version, because this whole concept is something that's been out since 2014. But the original version of Source Live had a lot of latency. So trying to solve that, they were trying to force the use of Zoom. And you would hear the creatives just go like, well, it sounds good. Joe, like, it's in sync, right? You feel good about that one? Okay, well, yeah, we'll just roll with it. Okay, thanks. And that they were just sort of like, I trust you, because as you can imagine, Zoom does not have a consistent frame rate with its video. It's kind of, it's, again, the same thing. Its goals are different. It's trying to put together a meeting and facilitate communications. It's not as much about the fidelity of what's being transmitted as much as the just content. So that, did you get it or not? Did you hear it? But how good is it? That's not Zoom's mission, essentially. So Source Live's, as you know, it's got a separate encoding application, which is able to pick up the video and the audio, and we're relaying the data so that you can have as many people as you need watching it, but you don't have to have that much upload to be able to send it to all those people. You can send it once to our server system, and then our server system does the distribution, the relays literally of that.
Is your server system then, is that dealing with the sync there, or is it dealing with the sync here before it leaves?
The sync is dealt with in the way that it's captured, and also in the way that the stream is prioritized, essentially. So it's not like, oh, there's a problem with the video, just fuck it and hold this frame for 10 seconds and keep the audio going. And when I line back up, I'm not sure where I am, but we'll kind of get it close, because now we have the data rate for the video. And by going through the servers, you're able to achieve a much more consistent frame rate. And there's other little things built into it too. For example, if one of your viewers does have a poor download, there's the ability for them to select a buffer, increase their buffer, which might increase the delay on that signal, but it should smooth out the transmission to them if necessary.
It's very cool.
So yeah, it's in. Thank you. Yeah.
Did we use that on that session with Somerset, Robert?
Yes, that's what I was on.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So Mike was RTS using remote timeline with Somerset, controlling her picture. She would go into play first through Mike's control. So Mike would control the position and when her picture went into play. So then once it went into play, she read along with it. Her voice got back to Mike, and when it got back to Mike, Mike's Pro Tools system rolled in sync with her playback. So now Mike is recording it in sync, and he's seeing it in sync because he's got Pro Tools video. And then he took the Pro Tools video and he broadcasted it to me and everybody else over Source Live to be able to then talk back to him. And he, through his routing through Source Nexus, sent my voice back to Somerset in whatever direction was given. That's the whole thing.
Just for anyone that hasn't seen it. Yeah, anyone who hasn't seen the video, check it out on the Source Elements website. Just scroll down the homepage at the bottom, and you'll see the whole session, which is the orchestra in Vienna and everything else. But it was amazing because Mike, he was sitting in his studio in London, you were in your studio in Chicago, and we were down here in my studio with Somerset. So it was very cool. Pretty amazing, really.
So the talkback is happening within the Source Live utility.
So Source Live has two parts to it, basically. There's a review stream, which there's an application you download and launch and install or whatever, and you basically send the video out of your DAW to it. You can capture it through the window, through a separate screen, or through a separate input. So the video is captured, and then you can send the audio to it using typically Nexus, so directly from the workstation. And then that is broadcast to everybody who watches it using basically a Google web page, a Chrome web page that they go to, which is where they log in. And when they join, it says, would you like to join the chat? So every now and then you might get some party that says, oh, I need really high quality streaming, but everyone is like just not sophisticated enough to know how to switch the chat over to something else. So we'll all talk on Zoom, but we'll use this as a stream. And that's kind of getting halfway there. Has some benefits, and you now have a stable stream. Unfortunately, the echo cancellation doesn't work as well because Zoom isn't aware of the stream in the same way. So it's not as beautiful as it could be in a sense. But you can do a hybrid, or when you log in, if you log in to the stream and you first say, don't join the chat, then you just have the stream but no chat. If you say join the chat, there's basically like a Zoom style meeting room built into it. So everyone can see each other, voice, video, text, chat. There's push to talk buttons so that ideally people are keeping their mics closed during playbacks, because that way someone's dog or my
that's protocol
chair doesn't get into the recording, or not recording, but the playback.
Right.
And then the advantage of using Source Connect for the talent side is that their recording is completely isolated. So there's no, all right, everyone be quiet. We're going to record a take. Like, all mute your microphones. Like,
the latency of the playback is, a couple of seconds at the most. But it's always in sync.
Of the video playback?
Audio and video is always deadlocked, but the latency between playback and when the viewer sees it is however long it takes to get there via the internet.
Yeah, it's about typically around the range of about 300 milliseconds, 500 milliseconds, in the same range as Source Connect. This was the big difference. This version is called Source Live LL, or low latency is the official name of it. In 2014, I was trying to do this with Source Live, and we made Source Live video, and it was pretty much the first whack at this type of workflow. It came out in 2014. It was a 4-person video chat room with a very high quality in-sync broadcast. But when you hit play on Pro Tools, everyone was seeing it 5 easily, usually like maybe 7 seconds later.
Wow. And
it just kind of slowed down the flow of the session. So even though it was like a nice idea, the tech wasn't there. And it didn't take off. And around maybe 2018, some new tech arrives. But we're busy. The product didn't first take off. There didn't seem to be a lot of adoption on people wanting to work that way. So we kind of sat on, look at that new tech. Maybe if we had known that now, that stuff wasn't available then, we would have built it differently. And then 2019 hits, and there's some other services that do a similar approach to the new abilities that were put into Chrome. And we, at the beginning of the pandemic, scrambled, and we basically redid Source Live LL in the first 6 months because it just became immediately obvious. And we pretty much got it done in time to make that video that Somerset. Like that was probably the first, amongst the first uses, because it was hot off the press. Like when did we do that, Andrew? Like 6 months into the pandemic?
Yeah, probably maybe even less. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was, but I know when we were doing that session, because I was sitting in here obviously helping. But I was sort of watching the laptop that she had in the booth with her. I'm thinking, holy shit, this is unbelievable, because this was always the reason why studios hated home studios. Commercial studios, when you're working to pictures, they want you in there. And it was always like, no, you need to come in because we're working to pictures. 2 things I always find really weird about that. One is, if I'm working to pictures, I'm not staring at the screen. I'm actually taking audio cues. So I watch it once, work out what the audio cue is, and then I work to the audio cues as opposed to looking at time code. Maybe that's just me. But the other thing is, if I'm taking audio cues and not looking at the pictures, send me an MP4 and I'll just watch it before we start and mark up the script, and then we can get a directed session down the line.
It's more than that, though, because sometimes it's just like, you're whatever looking at the script, but at least this way I can play back to you and you can see where it is and you can see what adjustments necessary. And I'm just like, hey, right there, you see how that price flies up a few frames after you mention it? Can you wait a little bit, put an extra pause there? And so the feedback process is also improved where you can just like see how it falls against picture. I mean, I think a really good example is I had Jeff Bridges in back in the day for a ADR session, and he walks in and chit chats with the remote side, and I had to actually do playback at the time because just the way the tech was. But he's like, "Can I see playback?" And he looks at it once, looks at it twice, like does one shot, says, "Give me again," and does it again. He's like, he freaking just did it in sync. There was no editing necessary. He just performed.
Some people are
it,
freaks like that, aren't they? Yeah,
perfectly.
I'll take that one step further. Another thing that I found it really handy for, and I've only done this once so far, but it was just yesterday actually that I did it, was I was doing it's just a little 15-second spot for Dettol, which I'm sure you have over there, like an antibacterial thing. And it was just a music bed and a few simple sound effects and a voiceover. But the creatives couldn't decide whether they wanted sound effects loud or soft or whatever. And I'd done a million mixes sitting here by myself. So finally I said, listen, do this. Here's a link, jump onto Source Live. And we did the mix over Source Live. So they basically sat in on the mix session as if they were at the back of the room going, yeah, pull that sound effect down, take that one out, blah, 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 move this one back, blah, yep, great, done. And it was just bang, done. So it's so good for that even, just for that side of things.
That's what I use it for all the time. And then I do a lot of voice record sessions with it. So essentially the way I do the voice record, it has a separate broadcast input than chat input. So as an engineer, when you join it, you can send your talkback microphone to the chat. You can get your chat audio back and send that to Source Connect and everything else. But your broadcast is isolated. It's just your mix. I always put the voice talent into the broadcast.
Yeah.
And so, but a really fun use of it is then you say to the talent, hey, go join this room. Don't join the chat. Only join the room. And when you join the room, mute the audio. Because now I can send sort of in sync video to the talent, not using RTL like we did with Somerset, which was just like right on sync. But you can get like within 200-300 millisecond sync. And it's a great way just to keep the voice talent engaged and aware of
in the loop,
where things are falling against the playback. And they have their own input.
So walk me through that again. Invite the talent to the Source Live session, but don't join the chat, and then mute what's coming back to them.
Right. There's a mute button for the audio
that's right.
and the playback.
Yep. So they're not listening to the discussion. They're getting except for what I send them.
It's in sync kind of. Yeah. By luck, because what's happening is Source Live takes whatever, it's doing it as quick as it can do it, getting the audio to the talent. And same with Source Connect. It's trying to get Source Live is getting the video to the talent as quick as it can. Source Connect is getting the audio to the talent as quick as it can. And they're taking the same paths. It's the same IP addresses to and from, and they generally arrive pretty darn in sync, actually.
Close enough for
the talent to be engaged and to know when things are like, you're not going to do ADR that way, but reading to picture, getting price points and pacing and things like that, it just works really well.
Absolutely.
So I might have missed this part, but how do you ensure that the voiceover track that's being recorded via Source Connect and done in sync, not wild, lines up with the playback when the Pro Tools, when the engineer hits play to play back? That's going to be out of sync?
I get it late, and all the other people get it late as well.
So how do you have to slide it or slip it?
I have to slip it after the playback.
Do they call it slip or nudge?
Nudge, move,
slip, move, slide.
And is it always the same amount? So you just go nudge, type in a value, and boom.
Yeah, you can. In fact, what I've done before sometimes is you just figure it out and you keep a region hanging around, and then you paste the region, and then you can use like slip or shuffle and delete the region, and it'll just knock your track right into place. One way you can do that kind of thing. But it's close enough that the creatives are still seeing it in relative sync enough to know, like, get the session going. Oh, need to read quicker. Can you get to this part a little bit faster?
Okay.
like the big things become obvious.
It's not until approval, like the very end, where you really get it synced.
Right. I will nudge it back and like if so basically during the record the creatives see it and if it's way off it'll be completely obvious. If it's off within 200 milliseconds, like they're kind of aware of that. So no one's complaining about 200 milliseconds at that stage unless it's ADR again. ADR is a different case.
Yeah, ADR is different. Yeah.
Right on. So this is just kind of what I would call ghetto sync. And it's like good enough.
But it's classy ghetto sync though. That's the thing.
Yes, that's right.
Classy ghetto sync.
So they
Clean
hear
underwear
it.
kind of sync.
Yeah.
The creatives hear it out of sync during the live pass of the talent, but they get it in whatever rough.
But
sync.
since it's voiceover, you're not matching a lip.
No,
exactly.
That's right.
With
Right.
a
So it works-
vowel. It
works for all of these. It works for all these use cases of just like general reading to picture, getting pacing down.
Right.
Does the voiceover say save over the save now super? Yes, it does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when I was saying that the voiceover gets it in sync, that's during a playback. During a playback, everyone gets it in sync, including the voiceover, even though technically the video and the audio are going over different channels.
Right.
During the
just
record,
coincidentally, they line up pretty
it seems to
darn
be
close.
okay. Like, stumbled upon that one.
We do that all the time. We send audio via one channel, video over another channel on the regular for different purposes, and you're usually lucky.
Yeah, exactly.
You're usually lucky.
So, but during the live read, it's good enough to evaluate and then usually people are, if they're going to make any comments, they might want to play back, and so I just pop it back into place for the playback, and now it is in sync. If there is a playback, but it reduces the number of playbacks and speeds the session up because everyone's kind of either getting an idea quickly of what's going on or they are literally seeing it perfectly in sync. So they're not like, play it again. Do I have to trust you? Can you make a quick time and send it to me so I can?
That's the fucking one that just makes the whole session just go boom. And then they're complaining about why did the session take 2 hours instead of 1? It's like, well, because I had to take quick times and then send them to everybody and then sit and wait for them to look at them and blah, 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 blah.
It's the pin, the tail, and the donkey mixing. It eliminates that, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, I tell people all the time, why use Source Connect? Because of workflow.
Totally.
You know, actors have to understand that this tool is used because you are just part of a big machine. You know, it
saves everybody time. Saves time, reduces
and there's
effort.
the more people on that session, just multiply everybody's salaries.
Yep.
Figure it out.
Exactly.
Or in the case of a voice talent, you got them for an hour. It's a union thing, so you got them for an hour. And the less technical stuff, it's like sometimes you have a lot to do in an hour.
Well, let me tell you this. Let me give you this. I know for a fact that, especially with some of these sessions that I'm doing from here, and I know it's not just here, it's with other sessions that Saatchi's do too, they're actually asking the question, does such and such have Source Connect at home? No? Okay. Who else have you got? So they're actually actively now just scratching talent because they don't have Source Connect, because they're not working the way Saatchi's want to work. So it's like, okay, well, who else have you got?
Yeah, that's like the ISDN was the big ruler filter in the day, and now it is definitely Source Connect.
Absolutely.
Which is a hell of a lot cheaper than ISDN.
Totally.
That was a killer.
Win-win. Yeah,
absolutely.
But I'll say this: we released a new version of Nexus called Nexus Review, and we did that at AES. It's not released yet. Sorry, we announced it, I should say. And I think there's going to be, some reasons why traditionally Nexus wasn't necessary for voice talent, but it might be an advantage or coming up or something that does this a little bit better. For example, as a voice talent, George, you've set up a lot of people with ways of getting playback. And sometimes the voice talent is asked to share a certain burden of the connection and organization of the session to make it go down remotely because the clients don't want to basically hire a studio or an engineer to manage that aspect of it. Does that seem to resonate?
Bastards.
Yeah, absolutely.
What'd you say?
Bastards.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's true, Andrew. You've talked about getting thrown into these situations and, hey, can you give us a playback?
Yeah.
And
well, funnily enough, we're just talking about that before you jumped online today, because I did a test on the ID44 to see if I could actually get playback, and it did work. So that was kind of
good.
Totally.
a get out of jail card. But I've got to say, when we were doing the session the other day, and this was a big session, I think it was 7. For me, it was about 7 spots for a telco in Dubai, and the client wasn't on the line, so it was the agency. And I've got to say, the guy that actually was running the session was freaking awesome. He was great. Anyway, so we did the first one. We were happy. He was happy with the first read, 30-second. So they quickly stopped the session, chucked that on the pictures, and sent it off to the client for approval. And then we pressed on. So we were about an hour and 40 minutes in. They had me for 2 hours. And then one of the account people said, the clients come back and they think it sounds a bit flat.
Yeah.
Like we've just done an hour and 40-minute session, right?
Oh my God. I've had this situation. I've had this situation before. If you're going to have a client that is that not willing to let you do your thing, then you got to bring him in because it just doubles the time.
Well, this is what happened. And so the guy who was directing the session, who was obviously the creative, I'm guessing, he just went, well, if they can't join the session, then tough luck because we're happy with it and this is what we're going with.
Wow.
I went, good on you. I said, that is fantastic. I really appreciate that. And he was right because when we were listening back to what we were doing, it was perfect. It sat perfectly with the pictures. And then he said, okay, I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's just do some hypey reads. I went, okay, I know what you're doing. And he said, just go for it. And I thought, yeah, because you want this to sound like shit. So when you play to the client, it's like, so did you want this? And they're like, no way. Well, see, we told you this is the way to go. Yeah. Yeah.
We literally call that a client read.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, do some Coke and like get it all energetic and like.
Is that the Coca-Cola?
Yeah, I was going to say, wouldn't you be burping for the rest of the session after all that?
More like sniffling, I think.
Hey, let me just back on live for 1 second. Let me ask you a question. Is it just me, or does
yes,
yes,
probably
it
is, or does live suck up less CPU than doing this all over Zoom?
I think live might be a little bit more efficient.
Hey, I was going to say, to me, it seems less laggy.
There's a lot going on in Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom's a big app. I mean, it can do a lot of stuff too.
Yeah.
Our thought is just to kind of, for the purpose, make a better meeting room. And so what I was going to say with our review, our new version of Nexus, which is called Review, or it has that option, that sort of like a new mode of review in a sense. But George, if you can imagine, you're looking at 4 faders, and one fader is to the stream. The other fader is your microphone, which goes to TalkBack. The next fader is your clients returning. And there's 4 faders. I forgot which 4 I mentioned just now, but you got your mix, you got your
what is your talent?
From the clients.
Oh, you are the talent. You are the talent.
Situation.
Yeah,
right.
Sorry. Yeah.
Exactly. And so this gives you the ability to have something playing back.
Yeah,
you can control that as it goes to you and to the gateway, right? Robbo, that's what you are connecting to, is the gateway.
That's right.
So that's the meeting room. So you have your ability to control like playback from you could easily set it up so that everything I send to my Mac output, if I'm watching a YouTube video or this or that, it all goes to the stream so everyone can hear what I hear. Right. And then they can hear my microphone. And then I can hear them, but there's your mix minus, and they're not going back out the Mac. So now you just have 3 easy faders to deal with.
Cool.
And maybe compared to gyrations within UA's interface, it's an easier way of solving that same problem and not even needing a full up DAW. So you can use twisted wave or whatever you want for playback. And so,
that's interesting.
Does that make sense, George?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what you want to have. You want the actor to have a pain-free experience that doesn't require a pretty sophisticated, multi-loop back, multi-routing audio interface that's complex to set up, and that's what you want. You want the user experience for the actor to be really painless and not distracting and not head banging against the wall. Frustrating. And also every studio that actors have is different from the studio that the engineers have. So when the actors have problems, they can't ask the engineer.
Yes,
The engineer's not going to know their setup. So like now if it's an interface that is common between every session, and the engineer can say to the actor, oh, just pull up that little fader. Oh, that's so great. I love that. It's right there. It's awesome.
Because in the UA setup, it's so complex that everyone can be customized, and you can get it done with, lobotomizing half the inputs and making its aux send the input. And no engineer is going to know about that setup unless they happen to know your tricks, George. And
yes,
well, they need to listen to this podcast.
Have a different way of doing it. Right. And really all it is a voice talent. Simply, if they are in the situation, they need to be able to easily play back whatever it is that they've recorded to the people who don't want to pay for an engineer to be there to play stuff back and do the edits.
Yeah.
I think maybe some voice talent might be interested in Nexus, which wasn't traditionally a thing before.
So, George, I've now got clients trying to do me out of a gig, and you've now got Source Connect trying to do you out of a gig.
And I'm already out of a gig by the sound.
There are some apps that are going to do most of us out of a gig.
Yeah,
coming
true.
Up,
did you hear the thing about James Earl Jones?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
No, what was that?
He sold his voice thing. Yeah.
He sold his voice.
Used.
Fuck, how much did they pay for that?
We don't know.
Disney, yeah.
Wow.
We don't know.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah, no,
it's Star Wars.
It's in a bunker underground in Ukraine. There's a team of crack software engineers developing Respeecher, and that's the truth actually. And those guys are smart developers. They know what they're doing.
I remember we would do Tony the Tiger's, Kellogg's Frosted Flake spots all the time, and I forget his name, but the original actor who did they're great, and he went like subterranean on that grr. It was something. And they did a huge auditioning, and they found someone who could be pretty much Tony, but he could never hit that bottom note the same. That
was what's his name, Thurl Ravenscroft, and he has a supernaturally unhuman low voice.
So it's crazy. Yeah. He and James Earl Jones are two that have, because I've recorded James Earl Jones, and my description of getting on the mic with James Earl Jones is once, yes, he can punch you through the speakers.
Yeah, I bet.
Voice.
Yeah,
it's crazy. He's just like, hello. It's whoa.
Wow.
It's amazing. Yeah. And also, he's the nicest guy. Because I was pretty young when I did that session. Yeah, he was really,
well, the closest I've come to that voice was after I had a bike accident over the weekend, and I kind of hit myself in the neck. I didn't hit myself in the neck, but I ran into a fence that hit me in the neck. It felt like I had been punched in the throat, and it messed my throat up it's just getting healed up now, but my voice was, I wouldn't say an octave deeper, but I was able to do stuff with my voice that was not typical. Like it was like really freakish, because I had literally damaged my voice. So it was thorough. Sounded like that just naturally.
Yeah. And so here's the part where we bleep it out, or maybe not. I don't know.
We don't have to.
That was easy. What are the chances of
that? We're going to keep this. This is funny.
Yeah, he's
you
dropping
just started dropping out when you said that. That was
out
hilarious.
Completely. As soon as you said this is the part where we bleep it out, it was like, boom. And now he's still gone on Source Connect anyway. There you go.
I think that could be our out.
Hey, before we do go, Dan Brum, who we've had on the show before, who is the audio sound designer for Bluey, the Australian cartoon.
And plays the uncle. And also to his brother Joe, who is the creator of Bluey. Big pat on the back, because two major achievements for them in the last couple of weeks. Firstly, Bluey is going to feature as float in the Macy's parade on this Thanksgiving. And secondly, it was just announced today, Bluey is the third most streamed show on the US TV. That's not just kids shows. That's amazing. Every show. Every show streamed in the US, Bluey is the third most streamed show, which is a massive achievement for a small little Australian production company. So, big kudos to them, guys. Well done at Ludo Studios. Let's give them a plug.
I think that means people are making too many babies.
Mate, you do yourself a favour sit down and watch it. It's a Simpson-esque show. Like you can watch it as an adult and love every minute of it. It's really cool.
That's good writing. Yeah.
So congrats
On
on
your thrums.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite
With thanks to Tribooth.
and Austrian Audio. Recorded using Source Connect. Edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging.
With tech support from George the Tech Whittam.
Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website.
theproaudiosuite.com.